What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/ All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not play football this weekend, but we might get to watch some Kenny Pickett. Meanwhile, there are plenty of people talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their quarterback situation right now and in the future. And we've dove into plenty of it. We have discussed our thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers and where you go from here. And can you salvage this season enough? And if Russell Wilson is the answer or the best choice to do so. But we're not the only ones talking. A former NFL MVP's got plenty to say. Adam Schefter's got the scoop on, well, what's probably going to happen in 2025. And Mike Florio, I know, had a new name that he tossed in the ring to say, hey, maybe this is the answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season. It's a chilly one here up north, the good old Scranton, Pennsylvania, but it's a good time. Happy to be home for a couple of days. How you feel, my friend?
I feel bad because I lied to everybody yesterday. I said that we didn't see good football on Wednesday. And the good thing about having football over the next couple of days is it should be getting better every single day. And then I watched that Bears game last night and I realized that I lied to everybody on All Steelers Talk. It did not get any better. In fact, it got much worse. If anybody braved that 6-3 game last night, I apologize. If you did it on my word that football should be getting better as the week goes on.
It was a bad football game. I went out to just like a local like pizza spot here, and we were just watching, drinking some beers. And I was talking, and I looked up and I said, "Oh man, dude, it's still 6-3." And I said, "There's 26 seconds left in the game." What? And it's 6-3. I mean, it was Steelers football was bad. Okay. Houston Texans 31-2 to the Ravens. Worse. This crap show of a football game last night was 10 times worse, which means that tomorrow might suck way, way, way worse. And we just have to hope that, well, that's not the case. And at the same time, the Cincinnati Bengals, I guess, lose a game, because if they lose a game, it definitely helps the Pittsburgh Steelers at least feel more confident in their situation going into next week. Let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers football. And what is a situation? We caught it. We're good. I know everybody saw it. We're going to hope that that doesn't happen again. A situation that is developing, a situation that everybody seems to have their 2 cents for. We have given ours, but we're not the only ones. And that is the Steelers quarterback situation and what is to come and what they should do and what changes should be made, if any. And that is where we'll start. Cam Newton jumped on ESPN's First Take and said, quote, "No, but you bring back Justin Fields," though, when asked about Russell Wilson returning for next season, "and you develop him the right way, though. Father Time ain't on your side. Russell Wilson ain't no spring chicken." Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers might think that he's a spring chicken because the day before, prior to this, Adam Schefter went on, well, a somewhat disappointing, if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, report saying, quote, they'd like to go ahead and keep Russell Wilson and re-sign him to keep him in Pittsburgh. There are 2 logical first-round quarterbacks in the NFL draft. They're not going to get either of those. The top free agent quarterbacks are going to be Sam Darnold and Russell Wilson. Is there another quarterback in the trade market that all of a sudden is going to spring free? Probably not. So this is where the Steelers are. I like both of those comments, okay? I think both of them are logical. Both of them make a lot of sense. One of them ignores a fact, a player, a name that, I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to ignore the way everybody else is. And that's Justin Fields. Because quite frankly, I agree with Cam Newton. Where we sit here today, if the Pittsburgh Steelers season ended and free agency started tomorrow and the Steelers had decisions to make, maybe I'm alone here. Maybe I'm not. I think it's wild to just ignore the fact that Justin Fields went 4-2 and is probably going to get a starting quarterback job in 2025 somewhere in the NFL. Why would he not be given the opportunity to have that in Pittsburgh? That doesn't make sense to me. I think when people talk, and Schefter was the one that brought this up, so he's the one right now doing the talking, where people are talking about Russell Wilson returning, it's almost as if we've hit the point of the Mike Tomlin conversation. Well, who are you going to get to replace him? He's got to be the best option out there. Maybe he is. Maybe he is. And maybe him and Sam Darnold are going to go into free agency and be the talk of the town, the headlines for everybody, not just the Pittsburgh Steelers that need a quarterback. I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, nobody is talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers adding Sam Darnold. Why? Because nobody's sitting around thinking Sam Darnold is the answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody's sitting there saying that's a risk you should take 100%. No, people are saying Sam Darnold needs the right situation. Sam Darnold needs a head coach and an offense that is going to make Sam Darnold work. I don't disagree with that. When it comes to Russell Wilson, I almost feel it's the same thing. And to be quite frank, the Steelers are not that situation. And even if he went out there and threw for 4 touchdowns and no interceptions and 500 yards against Cincinnati Bengals, I'd feel the same way. That the Steelers are a team that don't have almost anything figured out right now offensively. They're going to go into the offseason and they're going to have even less figured out. And they need a quarterback that they can at least attempt to develop into that piece. Because Russell Wilson is a championship quarterback for a team that needs a championship quarterback. And I don't even know if I agree with my exact words there, but that's, if we're going to put him into a positive category, that's what I would put him in. The Steelers are not a Super Bowl champion offense. They are we are just starting to figure this thing out offense. We just built the offensive line. It's not ready yet offense. We don't know who our running back is in 2025 offense. And George Pickens is our only wide receiver once again next season offense. So, yeah, Russ might be the positive, keep it cool, calm, and collected quarterback that Mike Tomlin thought that he needed this season. But I think at this point, we can all acknowledge that the Steelers need to develop their offense and that nobody, it doesn't matter who you are, and we're going to toss out a name here soon, but nobody can come to Pittsburgh that will be available in 2025 and make us all believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are suddenly a Super Bowl team. Unless I'm wrong there. Unless there is a name that everybody would go, there it is. That's it. Super Bowl champions on the way. You can add a bunch of pieces. I think that. But I think the most likely scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they take the offseason to try to begin to develop their offense. And Russ kind of feels like a Band-Aid. And Band-Aids haven't worked across the board for the Steelers. Why would they work at quarterback? If Justin Fields wasn't the other answer, if Justin Fields wasn't 4-2 as a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if Russell Wilson's only good game didn't come in a game where Chris Boswell won it, there'd be different conversations. But at the end of this season, it's very clear right now that Justin Fields is the more promising of the two. And you are just missing out on an opportunity if you're the Steelers to keep Justin Fields cheap, because all you have to do is promise him an opportunity. And that sounds like a much better place to be in than having Russell Wilson for 1, 2, maybe 3 seasons and just waiting for the downfall to happen if it hasn't already started. Unless you feel differently. But I look at this and say, Russ is not the quarterback for the Steelers offense or the Steelers future, simply because the Steelers realized in the last 3 weeks that their offense isn't built for right now and they need to start building it for the future. And well, 26-year-old sounds way better in that game plan than a 36-year-old.
Yeah, they 100% need to continue to build this offense. And I think that's where the offensive line comes into play. They need to build that, and not meaning they need to go out and get a bunch of new pieces. They need to build with the pieces that they have. You have to give offensive lines time to build. Like, of all the positions in the NFL, you can expect certain positions to just take off right away. Wide receiver being one of them, running back being one of them. They did that with Najee Harris in his rookie year. But offensive line, you're not going to be able to plug and play and expect them to be good right off the bat. This offensive line took about 6 or 7 weeks just to get the 5 guys to stay on the field through more than 2 weeks. They were injured. They were missing guys. Isaac Seumalo was injured. And then when Isaac came back, you lost James Daniels, and you had to get Mason McCormick to get in there and get figured out. So that offensive line needs to be built with the pieces that it has. It just needs to grow together. Quarterback, though, the way this is the Steelers don't need a gunslinger. The Steelers don't need a guy to go out there and win them every single game from the quarterback position. The Steelers need a game-managing quarterback. That's how they're going to win games this year, next year, and for the short term. Right now, they thought it was going to be Russell Wilson. But the problem with Russell Wilson is he's turning the ball over and he's trying to play hero ball. Justin Fields, albeit more equipped to do that because he's a more talented, just point blank, bar none, more talented person right now at this stage of his career, wasn't doing that early in the season, and you were getting better results. Russ is trying to play hero ball. That's not what the Steelers need. And I don't think that's what Russell Wilson can provide them in the near future. Whereas I think Justin Fields, if you would have given him the opportunity to continue to grow in this offense, you would have seen more and more. And at this point, it wouldn't have been a question. So to me, there are 2 options. It's the 2 guys you already have in-house, and I'm leaning towards Justin Fields right now.
I agree. The Steelers are blessed with the opportunity that right now their offense and their future is a disaster, and it's scary and it's very nerve-wracking. Fortunately for them, they have 2 guys that they could pick from. They just got to pick the right one. And it doesn't have to be the Super Bowl winning, this guy is meant and destined to lead us to a championship quarterback. It just has to be the right one between 2 guys that are on very different ends of the spectrum and do very different things, and hope that it works out. And there's a big possibility that if the Pittsburgh Steelers did decide, hey, Justin is the guy next season, he's the guy that we're going to roll with, that he's a complete bust, that he stinks, that you give him a full season and 4-2 is what he peaked at, and it gets way worse. There's a real shot that goes down just like that. There's a shot that Russell Wilson's the same way. There's a shot that you give Russell Wilson a full season, and this team is not 10-6. They're a little bit worse. And I just think that at that point, just like you said, you got to bank on what they're doing well and what the Steelers need, and what the Pittsburgh Steelers are designed right now to do. And what they will be designed to do next season is run the football and win through guys like Jaylen Warren and whoever replaces Najee, and give the ball to George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and not turn the football over. And Justin was doing a damn good job at that for 6 weeks. He was doing just fine. The problem is that the Steelers, and this is why he got benched in the first place, the Steelers asked Justin Fields to be a game managing quarterback, and he did that. But the Steelers put the standard that the only way Justin Fields was going to keep the job once Russ came back was to be way more than a game managing quarterback. And he wasn't in the game to do that. They weren't asking him to do that. They were asking him to do the complete opposite of be a game-winning quarterback. Just be a game-managing, don't lose it for us quarterback. And he did that very well. So I agree with you. I think that if the Steelers looked at this and judged it off of what they've asked their quarterbacks to do, Justin's done a pretty good job at this. And you get 10 more years of the guy. I think that's the biggest thing here. At the end of the day, if neither of these guys are a superstar, you take the younger one. That's what you do in every single scenario. If it was a rookie on your bench or Russell Wilson, you'd put the rookie and you'd stick with them long term and say, okay, if it was Kenny Pickett on the bench, you're going Kenny Pickett next season because Russ didn't do enough this year. I don't see a difference with Justin Fields, except for the fact that I got way more confidence in Justin Fields than I do in Kenny Pickett, who we'll get to watch this weekend. So shout out number 7 in Philadelphia. What about this name? As I say it, I laugh. We know what's coming. Mike Florio's been talking, man. He's been talking so much. He said that, I mean, he tried to say that George Pickens went over to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce after the game and said, "Come get me," when George didn't say that, man. He didn't. We all know he didn't. George might have a bunch of character concerns. George might be an issue. George didn't go and say that. I know, and you know that he didn't go and say that. That's just Florio stirring the pot because that's what he loves to do. Now he's doing it again. He's suggesting Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers for one last run here. And I'm telling you right now that Russ coming to Pittsburgh, we talked about it, man. We were here for it. We were here before it when we were making fun of the idea just because of how chaotic the situation would be with Russell Wilson here, Mr. Unlimited, as the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers? Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers in the Pittsburgh Steelers media? They're tough media. They're not a normal media. They're tough media. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers fan base? Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers if he sucked the way he sucked this season? Things would not be good. So your reaction when you heard that, because I'm not going to ask you if it could happen, because it's not going to happen. But your reaction when you heard that funny joke from Mike Florio.
Funny enough, you led this off when we were talking about it yesterday about what we were going to talk about. You said, Rodgers to the Steelers possibility. And I was like, wait, who said that? And you said Florio, and I laughed, similar to how you laughed when you started this segment. No, it's laughable. I mean, the guy right now is leading a sinking ship in New York. Why would you bring him into Pittsburgh? I mean, you've already went with the veteran, and who knows how this finishes out. We still have week 18. We still have a playoff game. As Alex Highsmith said, you're guaranteed 2 games. We'll see what happens in those 2 games. But we already kind of know the book on Aaron Rodgers. It's over. It is not looking good. It is really just a poor performance this season. And is it going to get any better in year 41 of his life? I don't think so. Like, you do get to separate yourself from that Achilles injury one more year. So maybe something does change, but I'm not taking that bet if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still think the best hands are the ones that you have in the building, and I think you have to choose between those two. If you can keep both of the 2 guys that you have right now, you probably do, because it gives you another option, but I think they're going to end up having to pick one of those, and either is a better option than Aaron Rodgers next year.
100%. I'd go re-sign Mason Rudolph before I brought Aaron Rodgers back and say, okay, like, at least this is a shot in the dark. You know, you're not going with the 41-year-old who clearly doesn't have it anymore. Go get Kirk Cousins, try to pull that one off again and say, screw it. He's not good, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is, that's like going to get Deshaun Watson right now. You just know what you're going to get, and it's not good. Would there be any scenario in your head where that is a possibility?
No, I don't see any scenario where they would go out and do that. I mean, unless they literally wait like they did with the wide receiver thing last summer and they say, well, we don't have anybody, so I guess this is better than nobody. It's better than Kyle Allen, I guess. So that's what they would do. That would be the only scenario, is if everybody else ends up with a dance partner and the Steelers are still sitting there saying, oh no, we don't have a quarterback right now. It's going to be our 7th rounder or Kyle Allen, which is probably where they're going to end up going. So I think that's the only scenario where this is possible.
I agree. I don't think there's like literally 0 chance Aaron Rodgers would end up in Pittsburgh. None. It would be, I'm going to be honest. The Steelers trading up for a top 10 pick to go get Cam Ward out of Miami is more likely of a possibility than Aaron Rodgers. Just because, at least in that moment, you're desperate. You're trying to do something crazy. Aaron Rodgers, you're desperate. You've given up. So, nope. Shout out Florio, dude. It was a good laugh. There's a couple of good laughs in a row for this guy. Plus, him and Schefter went at it, which is, only brought more excitement to my Christmas as I was watching that game. So, shout out Mike Florio. All right. We've talked a lot of quarterbacks. Let's pick some NFL games. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not playing football this weekend, but there is a full slate of games to be picked. And, well, we plan to pick them because shout out our boys over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Nick, I'm going to have you go through them. We're going to pick them. We're going to see who comes out on top. This could also be your, oh no, after Wednesday, I claimed it, huh?
Yes, you did.
That was the end of it.
Yes,
that
you
was
did.
the end of it. I'll take my victory lap on that one. I'll take it. I don't feel good. If that's how I claimed it, I don't feel good about that. Wish it was the other way around. I do wish it was the other way around. But I'll still take the L or the W because nothing else has gone right for me in a while when it came to picking football games. So this one at least helps a little bit. And my fantasy football team averaged like 65 points in the first round of the playoffs. So yeah,
Hey.
it's been tough.
Take the wins when you can get them. I guess for me, when it comes to picking Steelers games, I'll have to get you next year. But this is the third time this season that we've picked the whole NFL slate. First two times, I had a better record. So this is my wheelhouse right here, looking outside of Pittsburgh. And let's start it off with a 3-game slate tomorrow on Saturday, starting with a 1 p.m. kick. The LA Chargers flying cross-country to take on Drake May and the New England Patriots. Chargers are 4.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, I'll take this one. The Patriots had their moment, you know, they were good against Buffalo. It was awesome. They put everything on the line. It was a great time. Draw Mayo said, I ain't losing my job. Not this week. He's probably going to lose it this week. So I'm going Chargers 4.5. I feel pretty confident about that one.
Yeah, they still have something to play for. The Patriots haven't had anything to play for since October, seemingly, and Drake May is a lot of fun to watch, but I still think the Chargers are trying to tune up for the postseason, and I think because of that, Harbaugh and the boys get it done in Foxborough. Let's go to the 4:30 game. Denver Broncos, Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. A lot of playoff implications for this one. The Bengals are 3.5-point favorites. I'll take this one, so we go back and forth. I'm trusting the Bengals. I know the Broncos are a team that has been on the rise most of the season, but the Bengals are fighting back hard, and I think that magic's just going to run out for Bo Nix. I think the Bengals are going to catch them at home, so I'll take the Bengals plus the points with 3.5.
I'm going the same thing here. The Bengals are a good team right now. They're not good defensively, but Joe Burrow is doing enough to win some football games and get his boys going. And I trust Zach Taylor. I don't trust a rookie quarterback who has struggled in recent weeks. Let's not act as if Bo Nix has been perfect. He threw 3 interceptions against the Indianapolis Colts despite winning that football game. So I got to go Joe Burrow. I'm trusting a better quarterback in this one. I'm going Cincinnati as well.
We got a lot of division matchups this weekend, starting with Saturday night football. Arizona Cardinals visiting the LA Rams. Rams trying to finish up this division championship run, 6.5-point favorites at that gorgeous facility out there in Los Angeles.
6.5 points is a lot, but the Rams are hot right now, and Matthew Stafford looks really good. And when everybody's healthy, which I think everybody is healthy in LA right now, then they do pretty damn well. 6.5 is that's a big spread on that one. So I'm going Rams, but I'm going against the 6.5. I'm only going Rams less than 6.5.
All right. I'm in agreement with you. I think divisional games, it's hard to take spreads that are 5 or more points, 6 or more points in division rivalry games. Not to mention, Arizona's been doing this all year round. I don't know why they continue to be underdogs to this extent. They keep it close with a lot of teams. They have the ability and the capability of doing so, especially against a Rams team that we saw them have to win in a primarily ground and pound game. Who does Arizona have that can do that very well? James Conner. So they can keep this close. I still think I agree with you. The Rams are going to win this one, but I don't think it's going to be by more than 6.5. I'm with you, taking the Arizona Cardinals. Let's move over to the Sunday slate, starting with another division matchup, this time a 10-point spread. Bills favored by 10 at home against the New York Jets. Again, division matchup. Bills can't get the 1 seed anymore, so they're kind of probably throttle it down at least a little bit. Because of that, I'll say the New York Jets are going to cover the 10.
The New Jersey Jets.
The New Jersey.
I'm going.
They are, though.
I'm going against. Very true. I'm going against you on this one. I'm going Bills 10. I'm feeling good about that. They can lock up the 10 seed or the 2 seed with a win over the Jets this week. I think they get it. I think it's a brutal beatdown. This is the end of Aaron Rodgers. That's how I look at it. This is the game where we no longer acknowledge him or the Jets as a good, capable team or quarterback. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills say, yeah, last week was a fluke. Okay, I get it. All this stuff came out about Josh Allen's hand, but last week was a fluke. We're way better than that.
All right, let's jump over to the next matchup here, the one that you've been kind of talking about this entire episode. Philadelphia Eagles still 7.5-point favorites at home against the Dallas Cowboys, as we have Kenny Pickett likely starting for the Eagles.
No chance, dude. No chance. Kenny might not score 7 points. Let's be very honest here. Shout out Kenny Pickett, man. But that offense is half without Jalen Hurts, and they're going to figure that one out. I'm going Eagles, but I'm taking Dallas with the 7.5. I think they keep it much closer. Cooper Rush doesn't look terrible right now, and that Dallas team has something. CeeDee Lamb is not playing, which I think is massive here, but I still don't think Kenny pulls it off by more than 2 touchdowns. I'm going Dallas 7.5.
I'm not sure how much of a chance Saquon Barkley is going to get in week 18 to potentially try to break that record, but the Eagles are still in play for the 1 seed. I don't feel a lot of faith in Kenny Pickett, but I'll say he's going to be able to get it done against the Dallas Cowboys without CeeDee Lamb. So I'm going with Pickett. I'm going 7.5 for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. I like it. Shout out Kenny Pickett.
Let's head to the NFC South, by the way. Let's go Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers in Tampa Bay. The Bucs favored by 8 points in this one.
I'm gonna go Tampa Bay with the 8. I am. Carolina was cool. They had a good time. They had a good run. Bryce Young looked good for a second there. It's over. It was fun. It was a good time, and it showed a lot of potential in a team that people completely gave up on. So I'm going Bucs. They're fighting for a playoff spot right now. They're fighting for the South. I put my faith in Baker every time. Plus, I think Mike Evans still needs like 200 yards or something to hit 1,000 yards. So I think he'll get that. I'm going Bucs 8.5. I feel good about that.
Let's answer this question for John really quickly. If you're new to betting, here's a quick kind of opener's guide. Dumb question. He says no dumb questions. Can you do a quick example of Rams by 6.5? Does that mean they have to win by 6? No, they have to win by 7. If the line is 6.5, that means they have to win by 7 or more. 6 would be under the 6.5, so that would go to the underdog in that instance.
Yes, team with the negative points. So like the Rams minus 6.5 mean the Rams are favored to win by at least 6.5. So they have to win by 7 or more.
All right. With that, let's move over to the next matchup here. Indianapolis Colts 7.5-point favorites in New Jersey against the New York Football Giants. What do you got with Indy 7.5-point dogs or 7.5-point favors? Excuse me. I think I'm going to run with them.
You're running with Indy 7.5.
I'm running with Indy. I have no faith.
No Anthony
New York Giants. I don't care. I have no faith in the New York Giants.
Yeah, I think I'm going the same thing. Indy 7.5. The Giants are terrible. They are atrocious, and they just keep getting worse. You want to talk bad offensive lines, man? Steelers look like all-stars when it comes to that offensive line that has multiple first-round top 10 picks in it.
We got a couple of closer lines. Let's start with this one happened down in the Big Easy. The Vegas Raiders are 1-point favorites on the road against the New Orleans Saints.
Wow, really? Oh, the Saints have there's Spencer Rattler's the starting quarterback. I'm going Vegas. You know, it's Desmond Ridder, though. It's Desmond Ridder versus Spencer Rattler. Who is watching that game? Nobody's watching that game. Oh, my gosh. I'm going New Orleans. I'm going New Orleans. I think they pull this one off. You didn't give me a point. I'll go New Orleans. That's a terrible game.
I'll go on Las Vegas. That way we don't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah, they should take that off. They should just say this one doesn't even count. Nobody wants to watch this anyways.
Well, instead you could watch the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is happening down in Duval County. Jags are a 1-point favorite.
I'll take the Jags in this one too. Mason Rudolph, man. It's a good day for maybe the Bills will get some Mitch Trubisky action going, and it'll be a good day for former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. I'm going Jags. I guess you could give me the one. That's another bad. Like, who is watching that game? Nobody's watching these games.
I don't know. I went with Kenny Pickett, so might as well go with the other former Steelers quarterback. I'll ride with Mason Rudolph. I'll take the Tennessee Titans plus 1 point in this one. Going to the 4 o'clock slate here. Miami Dolphins at the Cleveland Browns. The Dolphins coming into a cold weather climate, still 6.5-point favorites against DTR and the Browns on Hard Knocks.
Okay, so I'm going Miami, but I'm going Cleveland with the 6.5 because Miami barely scores 7 points in the cold. They don't do anything when it gets below freezing. It's cold. It's cold up here these days. So I'm going to go Browns with the 6.5. That's just Miami's a good team. They just don't play well in the cold.
Yeah, I don't trust the Browns. I really don't. Specifically, I don't trust DTR. So I'm going to ride with Miami in this one. I think they might just get it, but I think they cover the 6.5 in this one.
That would be a good game.
Let's go over to games with actual implications. Minnesota Vikings hosting the Green Bay Packers in a massive battle in the NFC North. Vikings at home favored by 1.5. So you got to take weather out of account into this one. I like what Green Bay's been doing of late, but I'm going to run it with Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. They still got 1 seed hopes in their future, and I think they're going to be able to take care of business in this one.
I'm going the other way around here. I'm going Green Bay. I think Green Bay pulls off the upset just because Minnesota looked like they were on the verge of losing one last week, and they pulled it out. And I get it. I get it. That's twice in a row. That's hard to come by, but I'm going Green Bay. I think they ruin Minnesota's number one hopes. And to be honest, we're going to get to Detroit here at some point, and I might go against them too.
Geez, so you're voting for chaos in the NFC North. We'll get to Detroit here in a couple minutes.
I think Philly. I made a prediction a couple of weeks ago that I think Philly's going to land the 1 seed in the NFC, and I'm going to stick with it.
All right. Let's go to this next one here. Atlanta Falcons on the road in the DMV against the Washington Commanders. Rookie versus rookie, playoff team versus playoff team. Michael Penix versus Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has a 3.5-point favorites as the Commanders host the dome team in the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I'm going Washington. Michael Penix is a good quarterback. I think Kirk Cousins is not a good quarterback right now. What I also think is that Atlanta's team as a whole stinks. Those guys can't catch footballs. You watched the game last week, and it was like lefty quarterback. I don't know how to catch a football against a lefty quarterback. What are we doing here? So I'm going Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, man. They're hot right now. They look, after last week, they got to have some momentum, and I think it's enough to beat Atlanta.
You know what? I'll go on the other side of this one as well. This is our 7th one different, but I'm riding with Atlanta and Michael Penix. I just think that they got a little bit of a spark last week, and I think that carries over to this week. I don't think Washington is all that much of a home field advantage. I know this is a dome team coming up north, but Michael Penix played in Washington. It doesn't get much colder than Washington State. So I'm going to ride with Michael Penix. I'll say they cover the 4. I don't know if I'm confident in taking the money line, but I'll say they cover the 4 at the very least. And that leaves 1 game left on the docket. Monday Night Football, Detroit Lions, San Francisco 49ers, a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. The Lions, who are currently the 1 seed in the NFC, have a 3.5-point advantage going into this one.
I'm going San Francisco. Okay. I think Detroit ends it in Minnesota. They end it against Minnesota next week, and I think they lose. But this is a revenge game. Okay. And you don't put Dan Campbell in a revenge game. That's a scary situation. He might break out the kneecaps. He might break out the "we are biting off kneecaps" phrase in this one. I think it's going to be dangerous. They just brought Teddy Bridgewater back, which I don't know what that does, but it just makes me feel better about them. I don't know why. I'm going Detroit. I think this one's a blowout, to be honest. I think Detroit wins big.
Yeah, I agree with you in this one. I'm going with the Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions figure this one out. 3.5 points, not enough to me. I think you could have gone to 6 or 7 for this one, and I would have still taken the Lions.
I agree. I think this one would be big. We are pretty different in this. So I'm actually pretty excited for Monday's episode to see where we land. 7 games is a lot of games.
8. We're up to 8
games
because we didn't agree on the last 6 that we discussed.
That's crazy. I am excited to see how either we're really good or one of us is really bad in this one. So I'm excited for it. All right. With that said, that's our picks for week 17. I've been saying week 16 this whole week. It's week 17. We're almost done here. And with that said, we're going to answer some questions. First, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our boys over at DraftKings.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way to my partners at DraftKings. The holidays are finally here, and my partners at DraftKings have the perfect gift for you. Right now, all new DraftKings customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. That's right. New customers get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins after betting just $5. And don't forget to stay in the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. I do it all the time. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. All right, we're diving into all your questions. We talk quarterback. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, comments, and concerns about them, plus much more. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Yeah, let's kick it off with DeMonte, who says, why haven't the Steelers reverted back to a short and intermediate game to shake things up a little bit?
That's a great question, huh? That's a great question. I have no idea. We could sit here for days and talk about all the schematical things and game plan things that make so much sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they just don't listen. I will say this. Pat Freiermuth was pretty heavily involved in this past game, which Pat Freiermuth was the talk of the town loud enough that you knew the Steelers were finally going to start to listen. So they started to listen. Maybe that's what comes next. I don't know, but that's what it seems like, is that everybody on the outside can pick and pinpoint all of the things the Pittsburgh Steelers need to adjust and be better at, and the Pittsburgh Steelers just don't hear any of it. Is it going to change? I don't believe so. I also don't know if Russell Wilson is a middle to intermediate passer and has the capabilities of being so. So the way I look at it right now is the Steelers are a deep ball team, and they will remain a deep ball team whether it's working or not.
Let's go over to Marlon Lewis, who says, is this more on the defense or on the offense? I've thought the offense was a product of our defense forcing turnovers, and now that the weight is on them, they've struggled more.
I think it's on both. I think it's 100% both. The Steelers defense is terrible right now. The Steelers offense is terrible right now. And when nothing is feeding off of anything, they just don't work. And that's where the Steelers are. Is at one point in big games, Baltimore was a good one. Your defense was giving your offense light. Your offense was doing just enough to win. Okay, great. Washington, your defense did just enough to give your offense the opportunity to win football games, and your offense did way more than enough to feed your defense and give them a shot to keep this one under wraps. Cincinnati was the same way. Cleveland was the same way. It's just gone. Right now, neither side is working, and because of that, nobody's got anything to feed off of anybody, and you're essentially playing poor defense, which means that your room for error is almost none, and the Steelers' errors are massive. So it's just not making for good football.
Let's go over to Loswald, who says, Noah, who's the one guy that's going rogue that everybody on defense seems to be talking about postgame?
I don't know. I don't. And I'm not going to – I have one name that I think could be a possibility. I don't want it to come off as if I'm accusing him of being this guy, because I'm not. But one name that maybe makes some sense is Minkah Fitzpatrick, just because the guys wouldn't mention Minkah. They wouldn't mention anybody, but they certainly wouldn't mention Minkah. And if anybody's going to play hero ball, it kind of feels like Minkah would be the guy playing hero ball. But it could be Russ. It could be George Pickens if they're just pissed off about the entire team as a whole instead of just the defense. But on defense, I don't know. If I had to pick one name and guess, and it's nothing but a complete guess, it would be Minkah, just because I just can't come up with another name where it makes sense, where you look at it and say, that guy is causing issues. Maybe Cam Sutton. He could be another one, but I just don't know. I don't know.
Let's jump down to Ricky Alexander. Appreciate you. Ricky says, do you think that what Cam said is true? Justin Fields can be developed into a Lamar or a Josh Allen level. Also, why are Yinzers blind to the fact that Russ is aging just like Ben was?
I don't think Yinzers are. I think Mike Tomlin is. Okay, so Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen that's a huge bar. Huge bar. Those expectations are huge, maybe too high. But Justin Fields is a top 15 pick. Justin Fields is a guy that people thought was going to be ridiculous in the NFL. Justin Fields was a guy that less than a year ago, 6-7 months ago, there were arguments to be made, and they were being made about the Bears keeping him and not drafting Caleb Williams with the first overall pick. That's got to say something. The upside's got to be there. I think that Justin Fields could develop into a very good starter. And that's what makes me nervous about keeping Russ over him is if Justin goes to Tennessee, if Justin goes to New York, if Justin goes to, I don't know, name a team, Cleveland, that would be the worst case scenario is Cleveland, and develops into this crazy quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting there going, damn it, because this isn't Kevin Dotson turning into a good player in LA. This is a franchise quarterback that you just missed out on because you stuck with the dude who's 36 years old. That is an unforgivable mistake that Mike Tomlin would be forgiven for. And because of that, just think about that. Think about what it would be like and feel like as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan for Mike Tomlin to make that massive mistake and have zero repercussions for it. That's a franchise that is in a much darker place than anybody would care to admit. And that's the risk you're going to take if you stick with Russell Wilson instead of Justin Fields. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a risk that you're taking.
Let's jump down to MM3. Appreciate you. Says Noah, Russell Wilson in 5 games against winning teams has a 61% completion percentage, 190 yards per game, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks, 17 sacks, and 3 fumbles with a 2-3 record, scoring only 17 points per game. Hashtag it's always been fool's gold with Russell Wilson.
I agree. The Pittsburgh Steelers at one point were 5-0 against winning teams. You want to know Russell Wilson's record against winning teams at that time? 2-0, which meant the 3 were Justin Fields. And we were out here trying to say this is huge. Now Justin's 2-3 and the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-3. It is. I agree with you. I think we can go back and realistically say that you look at the resume and it's not impressive at all because beating teams like the Giants and the Jets and barely beating the Cincinnati Bengals, those are not in games that look good. They blinded us, certainly. But now we're seeing the light and it's bad.
Let's go over to Marlon, who says, what's the playoff performance needed for Russell Wilson to return as the starter, in your opinion? We need to know he could suck and Mike T may give him another chance.
Yeah, so there's a difference between what I would do and what Mike Tomlin would do. It's almost guaranteed the Steelers are going to bring Russell Wilson back. I think we both sit here and have a hard time truly believing it would be Justin Fields next season or anybody else that isn't Russ. What I think should have to happen is you have to beat the Houston Texans if that's the team that you're playing, and you have to look competitive against the next team. I'm not saying you got to beat the Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs, but you can't lose 29-10 and have 1 interception and a fumble in that game. That can't happen. You have to either look real good and that team has to look like they can compete with those teams next season, or you're just a team that just beats bad playoff teams. That's not a team that wins a Super Bowl. I'm sorry. The NFL is loaded right now with talent. Their powerhouse teams are crazy good. You can't be doing that. So if it was up to me, you'd have to beat Houston if that's the team you're going to play. And your next game, you have to be very competitive. Like it has to be within 6 points of a loss. And you got to look like you did your part to keep it that close.
Let's jump over to Chris, who says, if we fix the offensive line, would the other issues fix themselves?
No. I mean, a lot of them would, but let's not act like Russell Wilson didn't have a number of sacks. He got sacked 5 times against the Chiefs. Let's not act like more than one of them wasn't because Russ was taking forever to figure that out. And then by the time he decided to run, it took him so long. He was stumbling back like an old man. And that's why he got sacked. So I think the offensive line obviously fixes a lot of things. But the problem with the offensive line is you have the pieces for your offensive line. You're not going to go add new ones. You just have to wait for them to develop. And that might take a year or two. I don't know if that solves everything. I don't know if it solves anything. I do think that it helps, certainly.
Darian says, do you lose anything by starting Justin against the Bengals? He's already passed the conditions for the 6th round pick, so why not?
No, I don't think you lose anything at all. Who cares? Who cares? At this point, you gain way more by seeing if Justin is good in another game than you lose anything. There's nothing to lose. What are you losing? The momentum of 3 straight losses where you scored less than 20 points in every game? That's what's on the table. That's what you would be bargaining for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's only a win-win if you played Justin. That being said, we have to acknowledge they're not going to, but it's only a win-win if they did.
Let's jump to Jay Stokes, who says, do you think the Steelers still go after Christian Kirk again this offseason? How do you think our offense looks if we had him this year instead of Mike Williams to pair with George Pickens?
I think it looks a lot better. I do. You know, Christian Kirk's is starting wide receiver, a guy that would have came into Pittsburgh and bet a number 2 immediately. So I think it obviously helps. I don't know if it's like getting your offense to a place where you're beating the Chiefs, but I do think that it makes things a lot better and gives the Steelers a second option that they very desperately need right now.
Let's go to Thomas, who says, is there a chance that Troy Fautanu comes back for the wild card round? And if he did, would that be an upgrade for the offensive line?
I mean, it definitely would be an upgrade. Even if there's risk that he's a rookie, it would be an upgrade. But there's no chance he's coming back for the wild card round. Troy's season's done. They're going to stick with Broderick. It's just not realistic. Troy's not coming back.
Let's go over to Mike Long. Appreciate you, Mike, who says, Steelers are a good team, but not a Super Bowl team. It hurts watching them play playoff teams right now. Can they compete in the playoffs? I say no.
I think they could compete against the bottom half of the playoff teams. They could compete against LA. They could compete against Denver. They could compete against Houston. I do think that on a good day, they could get the best of Baltimore. But I don't think they could compete with Kansas City or Buffalo. I don't think that they can compete with anybody who comes out of the NFC and they meet in the Super Bowl. It's just like a wild card round teams you could compete with if you get the right one. Besides that, I don't think they could compete with anybody.
Let's jump to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, I think Justin only comes back if his market is dry. Is that possible, or would he settle for a backup role somewhere else?
I don't think he would settle for a backup role somewhere else. That's a good question. I do think that if he had the opportunity to come back and that was his best opportunity, he would just come back, because it goes to a number of things. Like, he's going to have at least some role in Pittsburgh, some opportunity. Now, what do the other backup roles look like? That's a big question. Like, do the other backup roles look like, you know, Kirk Cousins is your starter or Deshaun Watson is your starter and the opportunity is clearly there for you to at some point surpass these people? I think if that's the case, then he could take a different backup job. But if it's just like you are going to be a backup, there are no questions about it, I think he'd come back to Pittsburgh. He's involved in the offense. Arthur Smith loves him. And I do think that he's young enough to where the Steelers could look at it and say, there is a shot you're next. And you could have an opportunity in a year or two to get that starting job. I do think that's a possibility. If his market is dry. I don't expect it to be dry, but you never know.
When it comes to his market, MM3 has an idea as to what that could be. He says, Browns, Titans, Seahawks, Raiders, Saints, Jets, 3 of those teams are going to pursue Justin Fields. Tomlin benched him. That honestly ruined our chances of getting him back.
I don't think it ruined their chances of getting him back. I do think that the fact that, you know, he's not the starter obviously is a reason for him to leave. But the risk was there. I at the time supported the risk a little bit, and I got it. As for these teams, the Browns, the Titans, the Seahawks, Raiders, Saints, Jets, I don't think the Seahawks will be looking for a quarterback, but the rest of them definitely will. And there are 2 first-round quarterbacks that are guarantees in this NFL draft. Sam Darnold will be another one. maybe Christian Kirk ends up, or not Christian Kirk, Kirk Cousins ends up somewhere. Maybe Aaron Rodgers ends up somewhere. But I think that's it. And maybe Derek Carr goes to another one of these teams, but I don't see it. So I agree with you. I think there are going to be a number of I do think he's going to have a market. I have a hard time believing he's not going to have a market.
Let's go to Aiden Alexander, who jumps in. Appreciate you. Aiden says, I can see it now. Hurts is out for the year, and Kenny Pickett leads the Eagles to a Super Bowl.
Look at dude, I'm rooting for Kenny. Shout out Kenny. Kenny did not look good against Washington. He looked good for 3 passes, and then he looked like Kenny Pickett. So even the viral, like, deep ball that went 45 yards to AJ Brown, I mean, that was not. You saw what I saw. It was 4 yards underthrown, and AJ Brown went up for a good catch. So maybe the Phillies a good enough team that they don't need a quarterback, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to guess no on this one. Shout out Kenny, man. Hope he has a good game.
Let's go to Sean Carter, who says, Noah and Nick, what is the identity of this Steelers team? It's not acceptable to just make the playoffs and be one and done. The standard is no longer the actual standard. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, the standard hasn't been the standard for years. The Steelers haven't been pushing to be a Super Bowl team in quite some time. I don't know what the identity is of the Steelers. The identity is supposed to be run the football well and win off of your defense, but Russell Wilson changes that because the Steelers play more Russ Wilson heavy than anybody else or any other position or player else. So the identity should be run the football, win on the ground, let your defense win games. That's not what it is. Right now, it's Russell Wilson is our savior, and he will remain our savior.
Let's go over to Kara, who says, is it fair to say that Tomlin can't find playoff / Super Bowl success without a quarterback or team that has proven Super Bowl already? That's why he's so called all in on Russell, even without the production.
That is why he's all in on Russ. He is all in on Russ because Russ won a Super Bowl 10 years ago, and he's like, that's it, man. That's my guy right there. Shouldn't be. I do think Tomlin, I'm not going to say that you can have different trains of thoughts. Okay. I don't believe that Tomlin won his Super Bowls with Coward's team, if that's what the argument is. But I do think that Mike Tomlin is not a Super Bowl winning coach right now and isn't capable of building one in Pittsburgh or coaching one in Pittsburgh. And I think both of those things are true. He's not anymore.
Let's go over to Aiden again, who says Mike Tomlin wants a run-first offense. Is that not what Justin Fields provides? Russ isn't throwing the ball well enough right now to make his arm more valuable than Fields' legs.
I agree. And I don't have any argument against that. I think Justin Fields provides something when Russell Wilson provides nothing right now. And I don't think Russell Wilson's a bad quarterback. I want that to be known. I don't think Russ stinks. I don't think Russ is done. I don't think his career is over. What I think is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are blessed with the best backup quarterback in the NFL. And they should use him because he's 26 and he might be good. And there was an argument to be made about sticking with him when he got benched when Russ came back. Because of that, I think that this is a very unique situation where Justin might just be the answer.
Let's jump to Vibing with the Dogs with a little bit of breaking news here. It says, count the Browns out for the future. Watson just restructured his deal. The Browns are going to Brown. That restructured deal adds 1 extra year to Deshaun Watson's contract just to help mitigate the price over the next 2.
Oh my gosh. Browns are going to Browns, man. The Browns are going to Browns. They're done, dude. That's whew. Well, if that was the answer, if that was the solution to trying to convince Myles Garrett that you have a game-winning plan in place over the next couple of years, you failed. So maybe Steelers go get Myles Garrett. Maybe that's what's next.
Let's go over to Loswald, who says, can we go get Antoine Randall from the Lions coaching staff? Players seem to love the guy, and he's part of the kneecap-biting community.
He is part of the kneecap-biting community. I've heard, and I've talked to some people in Detroit, that Antoine Randall is killing it, dude. He's a phenomenal coach. I think he's going to be up for a couple of positions, offensive coordinator-wise, this year. I hope he gets one. I don't know if the Steelers will be in the market for it, but I do love Antoine, man, and I wish him nothing but the best. He is killing it.
Let's go to the next question here. Hey, Noah, as we speak, would you rather have Fields as your long-term quarterback or Caleb Williams?
I mean, Caleb Williams. That's Caleb Williams. There's not even an answer there or debate to be had. Caleb Williams is a phenomenal quarterback, and I'm sorry, but it's not on him. It's that offensive line is atrocious, and there's just nothing you can do. Caleb Williams would be the answer.
Let's jump to John Burnett, who says, how would you feel about Beanie Bishop starting over Cam Sutton? Been hearing Cam might be one of the players not doing their part as well.
Cam would fit that description, I would say. He might fit that description. I think Cam should still be starting, though. I think Cam's a better corner than Beanie right now. And when you face these good quarterbacks and great wide receivers, I don't know if Beanie was getting the job done there late in the season. So I think it should be split, definitely. But I was pro Cam Sutton this whole season. I think Cam Sutton's a valuable corner when he is playing well. Again, he could be part of it. He's definitely given up some touchdowns. So is Beanie, though. So you just don't know.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, what position do you think the Steelers have to address first next offseason? And what positions do you draft versus getting in free agency or trading for?
So we'll eliminate quarterback because that's the obvious number one. Number two for me is defensive tackle. Number three for me is corner. Number four for me is wide receiver. And number five is running back. That's how I would approach this offseason. And if you trade Minka for some reason, safety's on that list as well. That won't happen, most likely. I would go wide receiver in free agency. Screw it. Sign T. Higgins or somebody like that. Draft a defensive tackle in the first round of the NFL draft. Draft a corner in the second. Draft a running back in the third and a wide receiver in the fourth. That's how I would go about it.
Let's go to DKB17, who says, if we keep Justin for the future, where would Chris Olave fall on your wide receiver target list, considering they were teammates at Ohio State?
Pretty high. If he's up for a trade and it's an easy trade, why not? He's not going to be worth a big contract, so you could probably extend him for $22 million a year, which I get it. That's crazy money, but it's really not for a wide receiver these days, and it's not going to be in 4 or 5 years. I would go get Chris Olave if you could get him for a third-round pick. I'd feel pretty good about that, actually.
Let's go to Aaron Floyd, who says, love the show. Rarely catch it live. Shout out to my wife, Natalie. Shout out. Says, why does the defense, refuse to move TJ Watt around to get to the quarterback?
I don't know. We've had the speculation before that it's TJ. TJ doesn't want to make the move and he wants to stay where he typically plays or knows how to play. I don't know. They should be moving him around. They ran 3 outside linebacker sets against Kansas City. I don't know how well they worked really, but they tried them. I do. I think TJ is slow right now. He's beat up. You could tell he is not healthy. Whether it's his finger or his ankle, I don't know. But you can tell he's got no speed to him right now, and it's definitely affecting his game.
Let's jump to the faceless man, who says, do you think there's a world that the Steelers sign Justin and not Russell Wilson? Maybe go for Garrett Wilson and sign Daniel Jones to a cheap deal as a backup.
Okay, look at it. If I was running the team, I would do most of those things, not all of those things. I don't think I'd go get Garrett Wilson, but I like Daniel Jones as a cheap backup. I like Justin Fields over Russell Wilson. I don't think there's a world where that happens, though, unless Russ really, really sucks over these next 2 weeks. I'm talking really, really sucks. Throws multiple interceptions, is easily the worst player on this team, which I'm not going to say is impossible to do, but unless that's the case, I don't see a world where that could happen. No.
Let's close it off with our good friend Carl Spackler, who says, hypothetically, if the Steelers get Arch Manning in the 2026 draft, selecting him in Pittsburgh, mind you, do you think it would be smarter to get a new coach his first year and start fully fresh, or keep Tomlin for a couple years like Coward to Tomlin did with Ben Roethlisberger?
Okay, so what's smarter and what will the Pittsburgh Steelers do are two totally different things. They will keep Tomlin forever until Mike Tomlin says, I no longer want to coach in the NFL, and he leaves. What should they do? If you get him in 2026 and the Steelers struggle and Mike Tomlin's clearly mediocre over the next 2 seasons, why not? Why not bring him in with a new coach and just say, screw it. let's figure this thing out. Or at least a really good fresh OC, somebody crazy new and good that you really feel strongly about. But I think getting a new head coach with Arch Manning would be beneficial if Tomlin doesn't turn it around over the next 2 years.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, we are heading out here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll be back on Monday, normal time, 9 a.m. So look for us here on YouTube. Until then, enjoy a NFL-filled weekend and a beautiful one in the Berg. Peace.